All right, howdy, kids. Jim here. This month's lesson is a bit of a weird one, but something you definitely need to wrap your head around if you have any serious intentions whatsoever of getting other artists to record your songs. What I'm going to explain here is how and why songs get chosen to go on a particular artist's record, and it all has to do with the old follow the dollar axiom that I keep harping on, but from a different angle. My intent with this particular lesson is to help you see where you fit into the music industry's picture relative to their wants and needs, as opposed to where you are now in your own wants and needs. And trust me when I say it took me a long time to assimilate this knowledge, into my own head and world also. Just like I'm sure you might be frustrated by and have a hard time finding a way to make it work for your benefit also. But take the time and go over this as many times as you have to really understand, what you might want to do to get into their world and onto their screen, as it were. Just know, though, that you're not alone in your misery, of trying to figure this out. All right, for starters, pun intended, let's imagine you're playing football, soccer, baseball, or whatever two-team sport you understand the rules of. You are your team, and the music industry is the other team. You have invested years of time, talent, money, and hard-earned experience into honing your craft as a singer, songwriter, band member, artist, or whatever your particular set of skills are. Either way, you've got a lifetime's worth of knowledge and experience to bring to the game. Cool. And so do they. But while your team, quote unquote, has probably been busy working solo and alone in a room doing your thing, they have been spending money to buy the best players of the game they can find and afford. Not unlike any, professional sports team. That is, after all, how they get to, go to the Super Bowl, World Series, or whatever the yearly pinnacle of their efforts might be. So, with that being said, let's talk about who and what they're buying and why to make their team, so much better than yours. But before we go there, let me remind you that we're talking about music as a business. The business that it really is to the big league players whose attention it is you're trying to get. For the sake of simplicity, let's call the artist, their quarterback. He or she's the one out front getting all the fame and attention. When they win big, he or she's the one who gets all the attention, the awards, and all the press coverage. He or she is the face and the voice of the team that won. But when he wins, it's not because of his amazing skills alone as an athlete. No, it's because a group of people dedicated a whole lot of money, know-how, and energy to achieving a mutually agreed-upon goal. Now, here's an interesting thought. Notice that of the three things they had to put together to win, you already probably have two of them: know-how and energy. So why are they up there and you're down here? Because of the missing piece of the puzzle: money. Let me explain. Somewhere along the line, a record label decided it needed an artist to sing songs and make a record so that they'd have something to sell to the public, as in the case of CDs. So they went out and signed an artist and gave that artist a big cash advance against their hopeful future earnings with which to make records and live on until those earnings started showing up, knowing full well it might not happen until years later, if at all. Talk about a gamble. That figure, for those of you who care about such things, is usually a lot of money. I mean, a lot. Don't forget that labels usually sign multi-album deals with those artists, knowing it's going to take some time to get them famous enough to recoup their original investment in them. Now, without, even getting into how much that first album costs the label to make, advertise, and ship, consider this. Usually, there are about 4 singles released to radio from each album, and the labels allot about $1 million for the promotion of each one of those singles to radio. Why so much? Well, I won't get into the particulars of why it takes $1 million to get a single song to the top of the Billboard charts, but trust me, it does. So if we want to look at the label in the same light as having the same infrastructure as a major sports team, the label would be, the team's owner. Okay. So the owner, without knowing for sure if his investment is even going to be recouped, let alone, make nickel one, has already allotted, let's make that gambled, about $10 or $20 million on that artist's career in hopes of making even more than that back. Not an insignificant sum to be placed on a bet that the artist is going to become a huge success. I mean, then there's that whole thing about the public actually having to like the artist and his or her music enough to, go out and buy it. So, you should be getting the picture by now that the label or owner of the team is already spending a ton of money on what basically boils down to a bet, albeit a calculated one. Okay, so somewhere along the line, the label realized that they were going to have to get songs for the artists, their artists, to record from publishers. Yeah, those pesky little entities who owned the copyrights to the very songs they'd need to make a record. And if they wanted to use those songs that the publishers owned, the label would have to pay a royalty to them for the right to use, record, and sell those songs. Hence the word copyrights. The publishers were more than happy to license the songs to the label for a price, and it actually used to be a pretty hefty one relative to today's thousandths of a penny. But the label had to pay it because they couldn't make their records without the publisher's songs. Until that fateful day when Walt Disney, of all people, realized that if he owned a publishing company of his own, then he, as a record label and movie company owner, wouldn't have to pay those pesky little publishers all that money, and he could get to keep it all in-house. Talk about synchronicity. And now you also know why Warner Brothers, Universal, and Sony all have both a record division and a publishing division. Ta-da! Yeah, all the money would go from the left hand over to the right hand, but would never actually have to leave the building or the company, because they, both the label and the publishing company, were owned by the same parent company. But wait, even if the label had its own publishing company under its roof, wouldn't they still need hit songs? Where would they get them? I mean, great songs don't just fall off trees, right? Well, that's when the publisher, under the label, realized they had to go out and hire great songwriters to create hit copyrightable songs of their own. So the publishers started looking for and signing the best songwriters they could find to help round out the team, or creation arm of the parent company. Okay, let's take a step back and look at that from, about 10,000 feet up. The label put up millions of dollars to make a record. The label got tired of paying publishers, for the use of their songs, so they started a publishing division of their own to save money. But, which in turn also cost them another ton of money. Then the head of the publishing division went to the head of the parent company and said, hey, we need great songs, so we're going to have to hire professional songwriters. So the parent company / label spent another ton of money on top of the ton of money it had already spent to pay songwriters to write hit songs for them. So basically, each division, under the parent company is dependent on the success of the other divisions to keep the synchronicity and the money train running smoothly. With that being the case, why would they look outside their own divisions for outside songs? Well, usually they don't, if they know what they're doing. Does your brain hurt yet from realizing how much money gets siphoned down the funnel just to keep the major label machinery working yet? It should. It's mind-boggling. But can you understand now why it's so hard to get your foot or songs in the door of their machinery? They've already got all the pieces in place to create everything they need to manufacture, advertise, and sell their music. So why do they need you and or your amazing song? They don't. That's the whole point. Unless, of course, you can offer them something that gives them a reason, to allow you access into their world, which I remind you, they don't really need or have to do at all. What's that something you can offer them? Well, we'll get to that in a second. But for now, let's talk about you and your infrastructure. You live your life a million miles away from a major music center, have a day job, and probably, go out nights playing in clubs. Or you did in your younger days before you blew out your voice drinking, smoking, and partying 4 or 5 nights a week, living the life, right? Or not. Maybe you just sat in your bedroom writing songs for years. Either way, my point here is while they're creating the music industry, you probably spent the better part of your musical journey so far in the live entertainment industry. Or nowhere near either one if you were, just a lonely songwriter practicing your craft all alone in your room. Which, believe it or not, and hopefully you can see by now, has absolutely nothing to do with the music and or recording industries. As an aside, labels make nothing, or at least they didn't used to, from an artist's live shows. All that money went straight to the artist and their own crew of managers, agents, band members, etc. But that's not the point here. The point here is that while you were out honing your craft and living your dream of someday becoming a superstar by way of nightclubs, parties, and frat house shows, and writing those songs that your fans, friends, and family, just love, the other team was spending a shit ton of money building an infrastructure based around the concept of making an even bigger mega shit ton of money, which has absolutely nothing to do with your dreams, talent, great songs, good vibes, and imaginary visions of what, how, and why you probably thought the music industry existed and ran. And why surely they must need your great songs. So where does that leave you? Well, let's see. Like I said earlier, you've got two pieces of the three-piece puzzle they already own. Namely, know-how and energy. You've already got songs and probably a chip on your shoulder the size of Cleveland from years of wondering why you're not a star yet. So let's look at that part of your equation for a moment. Okay, you've spent years as a local or traveling singer, songwriter, and maybe even as an independent recording artist, releasing your own records and selling your own merch. That's cool, but what does that have to do with them? Nothing. They already have all those pieces in place to do everything that they need to make money and keep their ship afloat, as it were. So if those assets of yours mean nothing to them, what could you possibly have that they might be interested in or that could maybe get their attention, to at least notice you? Well, you've probably got songs, and probably some pretty good ones at that. They're great because your fans, friends and family have been telling you they were ever since you sang, your first song at a family gathering to your aunts and uncles all those years ago. Well, that's cool, but they don't need songs. They're already paying handsomely in hopes that their writers will write hit songs for them. So why then would they need yours? I'll say it again. They don't, unless you can find a way to make your songs part of their infrastructure, so that your song is helping them keep all that money under one roof. How do you do that? By writing either with one of their artists, one of their writers, or you move to where they have an office and get a job writing songs for them, like the rest of their in-house writers. Okay, I can hear you now. How the hell am I supposed to, get to write with one of their artists or writers when I don't know them personally and I don't live anywhere near where they live and work? And I damn sure ain't leaving my sweet job at home with the awesome benefits my family and I enjoy here in Bumfuzzle, USA. Well, the truth of the matter is, there is a way to get their attention, and that way is by offering them a financial incentive to want to do business with you. Notice I didn't say write or use your songs or with you. I said do business with you. Well, how the hell am I supposed to do business with them when I don't have anything they need? Well, that's the bitch of it. You do have something they need. You know what they need more than anything else? They need great song ideas. Why? Because their great songwriters may know how to craft a seriously commercial song, but they write anywhere from 1 to 5 songs a day, 5 or 6 days a week. And when you write that many songs all the time, even though you know how to write and craft a hit song, you run out of ideas that are worth a crap. So what you have that they need is great song ideas, not great songs. They've already got those. And how do you get those great songs to them? Well, that's where we, song starters, come in. Okay, sorry for the blatant plug, but I just couldn't resist it, and it fit perfectly into the flow of the text as I wrote this. Come on, you're a writer. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Seriously, though, the only way you're going to get their attention shy of moving to Nashville, New York, LA, or wherever is by giving them a financial stake in your great song idea. You can give them that by giving them just the beginnings of a great song in hopes that either one of their artists, writers, or affiliates could be interested, in finishing it with you. Not necessarily physically, with you, mind you, but you get my drift. I repeat, they don't need your great songs. They need your great song ideas so that they can say they wrote and recorded a hit song. They don't care where the original idea came from so long as it's a monster, original, and unique hit song idea. Okay, so let's go back to that bird's eye view of the game we were talking about earlier for a minute. Can you imagine going up against, say, Tom Brady and the New England Patriots with your high school second-string football team and believe for a second that you have a chance of winning? Of course not. But can you imagine approaching the owner of that team, with a way that he could fill in that hole in his line that's been costing him a couple of games each season and it won't cost him a penny? Yeah, I'll bet you can, and that's what you're doing when you approach a major label situation, with a great song starter. You're giving them the two things they can never get enough of: great song ideas and a financial reason to hear you out. Don't believe me? Just listen to the radio. The majority of it's crap. You think it's because they want to put crap on the radio? No, it's because that's the best song they had in-house at the time they were making the artist's last record. So if you show up with a no-brainer song idea that hasn't been said or done the way you've presented it to them before, you're going to get their attention. And that, my friend, is all any of us can do, even those of us on the inside. All we can do is hope to get their attention with our great song ideas and hope those ideas fall on the right ears at the right time and that the magic will happen. All right, now here's the hard part to understand and assimilate. How badly do you want to get into their game, get your great song ideas published, and maybe even get to hear your songs on the radio and make a bunch of money? Badly enough to realize that you have to completely unlearn everything you thought you never actually knew and stop trying to be that superstar that you're probably never going to be? Can you look at the beast for what it really is and realize that there actually is a way to tame it? Because that's what you'll have to do to, clear your head and rewire your brain and way of thinking as to how you actually could get into the game, if only you were going about it the right way. Can you slow the roll of your ego long enough to spend just as much time crafting only a great chorus, verse, or melody instead of a whole song? Why not? That's what we pro writers do all the time. Are our egos hurt? Only when, they don't like our starter enough to want to finish it. Not at all when we occasionally earn 6 and 7 figures when we do find that special situation where our idea is the one that they finish and run with. So, to sum this whole session up, it really boils down to deciding whether or not you can leave your ego at the door and create something that they actually need and want, as opposed to creating something that you and your ego needs. Can you do that? I think you can, and I'd love to see you try. The worst that can happen is that we or they may say no. In which case, we just write and submit another one, until we find the one that works. What do you have to lose in trying? Nothing. Because if your starter never finds a home, you can still always go finish it yourself and release it to your adoring fans, friends, and family. Of course, that isn't, going to make you rich, but it will make you feel good, and sometimes that's all, you or any of us really needs or asks for. Personally, my ego is just fine getting told no 1,000 times, just so I get to hear that yes every now and then. Not to mention the fact that it keeps me in house and home, pool, hot tub, etc., and all that stuff. And that's what I want for you, if that is in fact what you want for you. Look, it is possible, and I'm living proof of it. Care to join me? You're already here, right where you need to be, doing what you're already doing, writing songs. So, okay, let's go right ahead. Starter. Okay, come on. I'll see you on the charts.